Hey everybody, and welcome back to Awakening Earth, a channel all about humankind, our place in the universe, where humanity is headed, and much, much more. Today, I'm really lucky to have an amazing special guest, Milica Tepavac. So welcome, Mili, and I'm
Hi,
sorry for butchering your name.
don't bother. I just go by Mili for a reason.
Yeah. So welcome very much to the channel today.
Well, thank
So,
you. I'm happy to
sorry?
be here.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me. I'm really happy to be here.
So you're a multidimensional artist, a polymath, a hypnotist, healer, and much more. Please tell me, what is a polymath?
Yeah. Well, Polymath is someone who gained knowledge and experience in different disciplines. So in my case, that was industrial engineering, art, being licensed hypnotherapist, psychology, esoterics, being marketing manager, professional photographer. So I gained many different experiences and education. And so Polymath is someone who is able to think creatively and combine different disciplines to create something new and to see what is the common pattern and how things are interconnected, I would say.
Okay, cool. You learn something new every day. I can't believe I'd never heard that word before. So today we're going to be talking about what it's like to be human in today's age of spiritual awakening, talk about all the things that go alongside that, like self-expression, authenticity, tools to help us basically embody more of our authentic self, our true self, and integration tools as well. Um, Talk about heart consciousness, and the unconscious mind as well, and integration into the whole sort of sense of one's being. So basically, tell us a bit more about your past and how you got to where you are today.
Oh, okay. Well, my soul obviously have chosen to incarnate in extremely challenging conditions. So I incarnated in a country that doesn't even exist anymore. It used to be ex-Yugoslavia. And now I live in Serbia. This is where I'm based. So I have chosen the script, I guess, where I get to test and experience extreme limitations. So it's not only the country, it's also the family of origin, right? My ancestors and everything that goes with that. So I guess I wanted to explore how does it feel like when your voice doesn't count in any way, when you're not allowed to express yourself authentically, or where you don't have freedom to move or live where you want to because you're constantly placed some kind of embargo and visa and that kind of stuff. So overall I was living in a very dense and compressed energies, and I guess I wanted to get out of that. So that's how my exploration started.
Mm.
And it started pretty early. It started when I was 15 years old with studying Carl Jung. That's how it started. And after that, then, the certain material and books just kept coming to me. So I dwelled deeper into the esoterics, metaphysics, and later in life in spiritual practices as well. But along simultaneously, I was just living a regular life. So this was just something that I was doing on the side. No one knew about it really. It was just kind of my thing that I love to do, that made sense to me and gave me comfort. So spiritual stuff came kind of later in life, after my divorce when I was 33 years old. That's when bigger awakening started. So that was like, I don't know, like 10 years ago or something like that.
Mm.
And that's in short that I went through many different practices, like really many, including A Course in Miracles, and different kind of things. So I guess you would have to ask me particular things.
Yeah, and you also sort of, I mean, I guess for a lot of people, the sort of awakening part of that path is probably exploring channelers and that kind of thing, and other knowledge coming from other sources as well as oneself. Although I suppose arguably it all comes from the self ultimately. But
Absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely, but channelers are fairly new phenomenon. I mean, we did have some of them in the past, right? Like channeling material of set or
Mm,
raw
mm,
material, right?
yeah.
But it's a big influx. It's kind of relatively new thing. So of course that I included all that in my personal evolution. That was the important part in all
Mm,
this, because that's the wisdom that has that resonance of truth, and it's one of the ways that we set up for ourselves to remember and to start waking up. It's just
yeah.
coming from people. So yeah.
And that, so nowadays you're sort of going more into sort of producing material to put out there to help people basically to awaken, to understand the bigger picture, to help their exploration, right? I know that you, for example, have been sort of toying with the idea of, well, writing magic books and that kind of thing. So tell us a bit more about those.
Oh, magical. So, well, basically, what I do, I'm not a preacher or teacher, really. And I'm also not a typical channeler. What I'm personally passionate about is integration and embodiment, because I think that by this point we have received quite a bit of material, either to the book, YouTube, channelers and different kind of things. But I also noticed that in my personal life and in the lives of many, many people, it doesn't matter are you into spirituality or not. Many people are just mindful, no
Mm,
matter what they do. But one thing that keeps missing is embodiment and integration. And I realized that we literally need to be in a daily training in order to do so. It's a process. It's not something like you do energy healing session and it's done. It's not like you pay for the channeling session and it's done. Those are all very valuable things, and they can shift your perception, and they can bring you ease. Uh, but ultimately, you kind of need to do repetition quite a bit, so you can program your subconscious mind at the end of the day. So
yeah.
that's what I'm about. And when it comes to magical books, it's kind of my own healing modality that I invented as a result of all my passions. Because at some point, when my world fell apart, including the previous business I had, I experienced huge crisis, and I was like, so what I'm going to do now? Like, I'm so multi-talented, but what I'm going to do with all that? It's we are really living in an interesting era. Everything is so new, the old is falling apart, and no one gave us a manual how to navigate this
Mm,
new big unknown. So the birthing process of that new me was actually very agonizing at moments. It wasn't so that's the parody of everything. It's not so easy to birth your authentic self, and for many people it's actually a quite painful process. So I went through that too, and at the end of the day I realized, oh my gosh, I know what I'm going to do. So I started creating the magical books that are actually a combination of many different modalities, including incorporating mantras, affirmations, guided visualizations, principles of hypnosis, principles of mind programming, a lot of art, especially programmed frequency programmed art, and different kind of symbolism, because from my experience, this is what resonates well with the subconscious mind. So
mm,
basic magical books are the mix of all that, and the way how they work is I talk with the client, we determine what is the topic that they struggle with, what is that one thing that they want to change or shift, and based on that I create a magical book that is basically a bridge that allows them to cross from the place where they are to where they want to be. So that would be in short.
what do you think is sort of the plight of many, so to speak, in our culture across, well, I know it's very different from culture to culture, but if one was to generalize, what would you say is the plight of many in relation to where people are within themselves and in terms of how they relate to the world at the moment?
Where people are in general. Is,
Yeah, yeah. I mean, like my observations, for example, are whilst people are definitely awakening at the moment, there's still a lot of quite heavy, dense collective programming that you've touched upon already, and it's
Mhm.
really about starting to become to cultivate a sense of awareness that goes beyond that, so you can almost see it from like another perspective, in a sense. And once you become aware, then of course you can start working on shifting the belief systems and the thoughts, because you know, especially if we go by the very popular idea at the moment amongst the awakening population, which is around the fact that we create our own reality. Well, obviously it's collective co-creation, but in the sense that we interact with our world based on our own frequency. So I suppose that's where I was coming from, like in terms of what do you feel, where do you feel people are at the moment, and what do you think needs to happen really to get them to the point where people can be much more authentic?
oh, there is quite a bit of questions in that big idea. Well, if I would be some alien who came here to scan what's going on, the thing that I would see globally, I would say it feels kind of like we are splitting a little bit, because I still see extreme duality that is
Mm,
at play, unfortunately. And at moment, it feels like that we are not even living in the same universe. It's really fascinating that you can have so different experience and perception from someone else. So I would say that globally, we are still in a very deep polarization.
mm,
And I honestly believe the only way how that can be healed, no matter how cheesy it sounds, is really with love and compassion.
mhm.
And in order to get to that place, we need all of us. It doesn't matter are we awakened or not, spiritual or not, we need to do forgiveness big time. There's so many things to forgive, but not only to forgive, once we forgive, to also forget our past.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
I think that really releasing in that way is so important. So we can even make that space for something new to happen. And I don't think it's going to happen that soon as we maybe hope for, because I'm not sure what to say, because just polarization is very deep, really.
Mm,
When it comes to more awakened people, because I kind of really need to make distinguishment, because there is a difference, right? So when it comes to more awakened people, what I see when I work with them, there are like common themes that everyone is struggling with. Uh, the first theme would be intuition and connection to their inner guidance.
mm,
That's at least my personal feedback from the people I work with. So lots of people, even the spiritual people, have an issue that they rely way too much on the sources outside of themselves. And some of them get burned because of that,
yeah,
because they're
yeah,
following something outside of
yeah.
themselves. So people come to me a lot to order a magical book to cultivate more that inner guidance.
Mm,
The other topic is releasing the past, because we keep repeating this ancestral PTSD. So that is like huge common theme among the star seeds, so to speak. Yeah, trauma, releasing the trauma in a way. And last theme, but not least, as they say, actually maybe the most important theme that is really common, it doesn't matter are you awakened or not, is really authenticity.
mm,
A huge topic. So people really need help with that. Like,
yeah,
who am I truly? And how do I authentically self-express? Even many spiritual people, they got stuck. They're just not sure okay, what I'm going to do with all
Mm.
this
Mm.
new me that is emerging. I'm not the old me anymore. I cannot fit into that prism anymore. But what I'm supposed to do now, how do I really work and operate in this world? And how do I really express myself? So
Mm.
authenticity and authentic self-expression is huge. And it's a
Yeah.
common every human being
The
today.
idea
So
of I
after COVID,
yeah,
especially after COVID,
yeah.
and in this time space, right, where we see that old systems are falling apart, and we see more clearly that all things are not functioning. But I think so many of us are still trying to figure out, okay, how do I actually show up? What
Mm.
do I actually do? And what do I actually want to express? So many fears and many triggers are being called out
Mm.
for us to be facing them. And there are many topics that pop up
Yeah.
with that. Courage, you know, determination, the difference and discernment between uh, persistence and resistance. There's subtle things that we need to redefine. Yeah.
Yeah, it's for me also, it's like things like identity. Because as going through this process, I think a lot of the things that have been on my mind as well that have been brought up by this process is, well, okay, I was this person before. I held myself back a lot. I didn't take the opportunities I had. I was sort of, I suppose, behaving in such a way that was indicative of quite a sort of strict upbringing and so on and so forth. But when you kind of step into this new sense of oneself, what does that mean for one's identity? Are you who are you in terms of how I suppose it's difficult to put into words, but I'm sort of talking about how one relates to the outside world and the relationship one has with oneself. I think all of those things are so important because one keeps hearing these days that the outside world is a reflection of that which is within, which I can certainly be on board with. But at the same time, each and every day we wake up, we're faced with this world that we see, we interact with, we can touch, we can smell, and we perceive external things happening as affecting us. So that then sort of takes you to the idea of, well, the idea of victim mentality and that kind of thing. So there's so many things that open up as a result of just day-to-day living, isn't there? Like when things interact with you, one extreme could be you nearly get hit by a car, and that will obviously trigger perhaps some energies within that you kind of fear for your life and so on and so forth. So it's very difficult, isn't it, to kind of navigate these things and really understand who you are when it comes to interacting in the world. What's your thoughts on that sort of side of things?
Well, okay. What I realized in my journey, I even wrote that magical book on authenticity and authentic self-expression. But first and foremost, I would say that my huge epiphany and realization was that real authenticity is really shredding off the layers of your ego self, your
Mm.
personality, and allowing your true self and your higher mind to operate your awareness. Because when that shift happens, then you definitely have less worries and anxiety. And your rational mind is not like tripping, oh, what I should figure out, what I should do. You simply employ things like prayers,
Mm.
you ask for guidance, and you make space so your higher mind can operate. And the way to do that is to get into your heart, into your
Yes.
heart center,
Yeah.
and to keep your mind empty, because mind is initially designed to be an empty space to receive the images of your heart, really,
Mm.
not wise as we normally operate. So that's something I would touch upon when it comes to that topic. And when it comes to just going back, being human, right? Having a human experience, I would say it's very tricky. Because yes, we are being told that we are creators of our own destiny and our own life. But as someone who has been spending over 40 years in extreme dark, I do have some slightly different opinions maybe than from the narrative we keep receiving. Sure, we are creators, but I think it's so important to take into account our history and how we ended up being the way we are. So there are some truths that we know now, even from the science and neuroplasticity and different kind of research that has been done. And that is that when we get born, when we get incarnated here, our mind is actually very open all up to the age of 7. We naturally spend time in theta brainwaves. And how that translates is that we are actually very sensitive. We are dwelling mostly in the realm of our subconscious, which is the realm of emotions, really. And we are basically, as an open mind, picking up everything that we are surrounded with on a daily basis, which includes our family. So it's family programming, cultural programming, TV, radio, right? Whatever we are exposed to, our teachers, guardians. So this is how we become that persona that is adult. That's what's happening under our conscious awareness. And our subconscious mind is really like a software filled with the programs. But we need to understand how we are actually being programmed, right? And also, when you're such a small child, we don't really have a free choice. You completely depend on your parents or whoever takes care of you, right? And it would be ridiculous to allow such a young child at age 4 to make lifelong decisions. It makes no sense. So that comes later. Okay. And then we can say that those rules that you mentioned and the wisdom we receive applies, actually. Yes, that's the moment when we can start making conscious choices. But now the question becomes, what is the content of this subconscious mind, really? And subconscious mind is also picking up the energies that is surrounded with.
Yes.
Relation between emotions and energies is very strong. It's pretty much the same thing. So, of course, that your surrounding is going to have a huge effect, what you are picking up. So that being said, I'm not saying that you don't have a free will and option to create reality, but you're definitely not the only creator. I mean, we are all part of the one mind, but I would rather say we are definitely in the process of co-creation. And of course, people you're surrounded with, energies you're surrounded with, the culture you're surrounded with absolutely has influence on your state of being, on your mood, the way how you feel, what you believe in, that translates into your emotions, and of course in your actions, which is the ultimate mechanism how you do create your reality. But even then, and if you do everything perfectly on that realm, if you're someone like me, for example, that action level is going to be, let's say, kind of limited again. Like, no matter how much I work on myself, right? If I want to move to another country, I cannot really. I mean, there is always possibility that some miracle might happen, right? If you have a miracle mind, but on a practical level, now I cannot really do it, So I don't know. I mean, I have a little bit different view than what is the regular narrative on this topic. I just think that we are incarnated in a society that is based on colonialism. And yes, some have freedom, but there is also the shadow side of the freedom. I mean, I get to experience it, but, it's not everyone's experience. I'm just saying, we all have our own perceptions, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely, we do. And one thing that has really quickly been coming into my sort of awareness lately is just how different perspectives across the world are. And the truth is there is no one right answer, one right perspective. Everything is as it is for a reason, and that is the all that is, you know,
Yeah,
viewing
but
or understanding itself through everybody's eyes at the same time.
but there is one truth. I still believe what I said in the beginning. What is solution? Solution is love and compassion. And in
Mm.
order uh, to cultivate all that and to really shift and change things, you cannot do just bypassing either spiritual or ignorance. In order to really change something, well, let's just see that this exists too, and that's part of our shadow.
Yeah,
Let's
yeah,
put it
yeah.
the shadow on a forefront to actually see what it is, you know, instead of ignoring or blaming other person. Oh, you just created it. Well, why don't we just bring the shadow to the surface,
Mm.
see, and then once we see it, we can actually change it.
I
Until
think
then,
there's a lot of that happening right now. I think, you know, we see so much turmoil in the world, wars and everything else. But the way I choose to look at it myself, be it right or wrong in other people's minds, is that it's the process of things being brought up to the surface, because when people are conscious of it, we have the opportunity to choose to make different choices, to see things in a different way. You know, rather than sort of just being weighed down by it all. That there are obviously hardships. I'm not saying there aren't, but at the same time, we have a choice to do something with it. And maybe the fact that things are more to the surface means that we are actually making progress. I think
well, we
better that than things being completely unconscious and we're not aware of the things going on underneath.
absolutely we are making progress, and I think we are heading in a good direction. I'm just not sure, how that translates, with what speed, and you
Yeah.
know, in what form, and in what time. But there is a huge reason. Everyone is shocked. Oh my gosh, we have so many wars in 21st century. To me, that makes sense, because lots of people didn't want to even acknowledge what is really a building block of the world that we live in.
Yeah.
And now, with those new energies, everything is coming to the surface. That's ugliness, so to speak, those
Mm.
untruths.
Mm.
And we are faced, like, it's in our face.
Yes. Yeah.
What do you believe in? Are you still taking sides? Who is right, Ukraine or Russia? If you do, boy, you're in a polarization.
Mm.
Like, different kind of things. Or why the wildfire on Hawaii? Hawaii is known as a heart chakra of the planet.
Yeah.
Isn't it interesting? It's burning. Well, something is not aligned with love. you know
Mm. Mm.
this kind of things. And but I see that as a good thing. It looks ugly, but from my experience, if you want expansion, you're going to experience some pain and suffering, and unfortunately trauma happened to be a good mechanism for waking up.
And maybe it is about changing one's perspective, and I think so many people in different books talk about making pain and suffering, almost crafting a different relationship with pain and suffering to help that process of moving through it into a more sort of enlightened perspective, and being able to shift the energies that through that sort of personal shift within yourself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But obviously easier said than done for many.
Well, this is a great opportunity, if you ask me, because we are not meant to do those things alone.
Mm.
And in a world when everything is kind of falling apart, instead of being in a state of desperation, once we awaken our authentic self, I think it's a great question to ask. Oh my gosh, what new paradigm I could advocate?
Yeah.
What new paradigm I could promote? I see clearly what I don't like. But purpose often emerges once we realize how
Right.
our unique talents
Yeah.
can positively impact people around us,
Yeah.
including immediate surrounding, but also globally, right?
Mm.
So that's just the beautiful energy that emerges. And once you have that passion, then you don't have problem with procrastination, laziness, none of that. You are in a good action mode, but that
Mm.
authenticity needs to be waken up, right? So this world is craving for new type of education. For example, I'm personally very passionate about to advocate active imagination in educational system.
Mm.
Just one, or the importance of why we need to use and spend more time in alpha and theta brainwaves. I think that's going to be part of our consciousness evolution globally. How dwelling in alpha and theta brainwaves can heal us, because we are constantly in a high beta state, which is really a state of neurosis, anxiety, and panic
Mm.
attacks.
Mm.
Becomes so interesting topic in today's world when we got more notifications and more notifications, where we are like pressured, produce more, be more, and all that stuff. So bringing mindfulness into corporations is also one of my
Yeah.
topics
Yeah.
that I'm passionate about. So I think each of us in this process of awakening, we can really be more joyful about all that and see, okay, this looks ugly, but who am I and what I can really bring to this world and who I can connect with. I also think that it's time that we leave that and abandon that mindset, egoistic mindset. Me, and my followers, like that kind of bullshit. So why don't we connect people with the same core values,
Mm.
Together, and don't see each other as a competition, but as a parcels of one unit that are passionate about the same thing and have the same core values, and see, okay, what each of us with our unique talents and gifts can do and make something new.
Mm.
I think that connectivity is the big one that we are called to do as well. Because after all, when you think more about it, one of the principles of abundance is connection, is to feel connected. And
Yeah, it's to stop thinking that we live in a world of finite resources. I know it looks like that when, from the human point of view, but if you think about these ideas of, if you really believe in something yourself, then more often than not, you will manifest, that sort of energy in your life. And, everything starts from energy, then becomes physicalized. So it's again, it comes back to, yes, I live in what appears to be a physical world, but it's not so rigid as that. It's much more malleable if, again, we choose to believe that it is. Everything comes down, I think, to one's perceptions and beliefs and thoughts. And whilst I can't get out the window and think, oh, I can fly, I can go and fly, we incarnated into the earth. I think we have certain agreements that the reality is in a certain way. But there's a lot of things that I think hold humanity back, and that's, around their belief systems that everything's finite. I'm stuck here. And there's so much that holds us back in that way. So it's really about realizing we can actually have the power within us to create a lot more.
absolutely, I'm just advocating idea that maybe we should not do it all by ourselves. I really
Absolutely. Yeah.
prefer
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
communities.
Yeah.
I think that's something that is so powerful, because when you're with yourself, and I know I live a very isolated life, like a monk basically, due to the circumstances. It's not really my personal ego choice, but
No.
my heart decided that, right? So I know how hard it gets when you feel isolated and alone and lonely. Uh, you need to train your mind to such a great extent not to feel drawn and depressed.
Yeah.
Much easier when you're surrounded with a group of people. That's the power of the unity. If one, feels down, there is the group that lifts you up. So that's the power of the group, and not to mention the brainstorming and heart storming, as I like to call it,
Yeah.
in the entire process. So I just think that I'm personally kind of waiting for that to happen, instead of having our own YouTube channel, our own Instagram, our own Patreon, whatever, I mean, if we all have separate things, we cannot expect that the same audience is going to devote all their time to follow each of us and consume our material. It makes no sense to me. But what does make sense is like, okay, let's gather people who vibe in the same way and who are passionate about the same things. And let's, from the place of heart and love, create some really new, awesome stuff. That's kind of where I am, and waiting those people to manifest.
It's funny, because I feel like in the past I've been part of many groups such as groups practicing and teaching Reiki, other spiritual development groups, all local to me. But then COVID happened, and I could do some of those still online. But I also discovered a whole new huge raft of people across the world. And I wonder if that would have happened in the same way had COVID not happened and we'd been sort of, stuck indoors. But now I have a much larger group of friends. I think together, collectively, if you take away the idea of time and space, thinking of the fact that everything is now, then we as large groups across the world have a lot of power. We co-create together. We can feel that when we connect with each other. And I think that's like a stepping stone to the future, where we will then be able to come together much more in larger groups, all around the world rather than just from down the road.
Yeah, and I think that the driving force for that, I just think that certain steps before that need to happen.
Yeah.
Those are the things that we actually touched upon. Those common things like getting in touch with your true self, become your authentic self. To get that momentum, to feel really good in your own skin and claim your power back, and that should be really the basis of everything. And I think that once we do all that, we are going to naturally come towards each other. I really think on a physical plane. So far we are on internet, making connections, that kind of stuff. It's still, even we are not in COVID, most of my friendships are online.
Yeah.
In my surrounding that I can, even communicate with. They probably see me as a witch they want to burn on a stick, even it's 21st century. So, but I think that we will materialize and make it more physical once we settle in our own authenticity, really.
Yeah. Well, look, there's so much more I want to talk about. So let's do that in the next episode, because I want to sort of have a deep dive on things like empowerment and responsibility and things like that, which I think are essential for people to sort of really understand in relation to assisting them with their awakening journey. So I'll really look forward to sort of picking that up with you next time. But thank you so much.
Looking forward to, and thanks for having me.
Thank you.
I hope who are watching this are going to take something beneficial for them.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you, everybody, and be sure to tune in for part 2. See you later.
Yeah.